Greetings and welcome back to the shop tonight. I made a comparison video the other day, but it got a little long-winded, I guess, and YouTube has decided that I am not going to upload it. So I figured I'd make another one now that I'm aware of my time constraints. Made it a little bit shorter, of course. I laid out some ratchets, some wrenches, and some other things. Talk about some do-it-yourself brand tools and some pro brand tools. Compare and contrast them. I have up here Snap-on and Craftsman ratchets and a Cobalt. So let's start. I've put a lot of abuse through this particular Cobalt ratchet. It's done all right, but it's clunky. It's got a lot of wiggle. Craftsman ratchet has way more years of abuse. It's probably the biggest toothed ratchet I have. You can see that major movement there, and it's got a little bit of wiggle too, but not quite as bad as that Cobalt. Now I do want to point out the biggest issue with these Cobalt ratchets, at least in my personal preference, is you see that both of these selector switches are in the same direction. You flip them over, this one spins that way, that one spins that way. But even three selectors, same direction, spins that way, spins that way. Yeah, that's the biggest obstacle for me to overcome using that Cobalt, and that's why it doesn't get used. So yeah, let me give you one more close-up of. See how tight that head is? Yeah, that's why I prefer my Snap-on ratchets. Same thing with the 1/4 inch. Just got a lot of play. So there's a start. Let's move on to wrenches now. I put out 3 wrenches here. They're all line wrenches. They're 3 different companies. I got my Gear wrench, I got my Mac, and I got my Matco. So I'm actually not a fan of Matco wrenches at all. You can see, set these 2 next to each other, the difference in thickness, in quality. These are the same size. Well, one end of these is the same size. No, both ends of these are the same size. Look, there's a better direct comparison. And we'll throw the Mac. Oh, the Mac doesn't want to stand up on its own. So the Mac's thin too, like the Matco, but you can see that the Mac has been putting in years and years and years of work. Still works great. The Matco I barely ever use. It feels flimsy, it feels cheap. I feel like I could probably break it between my fingers. That might be wrong. I might just feel some kind of way about Matco. Anyway, moving on from wrenches. This is the big for me today. We want to talk about do-it-yourself brands, Craftsman, and professional brands. Well, you can see that one's sheared off with about 1 use. That one's starting to walk around. That Craftsman's doing all right. This Eastco has been working for many, many, many years. You can see there's cut reliefs so that the stuff in the bottom of the fastener doesn't make it bottom out prematurely and you get like less engagement there. The Craftsman is perfectly flat there on the top. You'll get less engagement like I was talking about. You can also see that the Snap-on one is the same way. It's got these little reliefs cut on the edges there. And the center's dimpled on both of those. This Snap-on I actually found on top of my front differential in a pickup truck. Last but not least, real quick here, we have two old sockets, 19 millimeter. I use both of these sockets all of the time, literally all of the time, every single day, 100 times a day. Lug nuts on Hondas are 19 millimeter. Take a guess. Which one? Which one's the professional brand? Which one's the do-it-yourselfer? So, this is my Pittsburgh 19 millimeter, and this is a Snap-on 19 millimeter. It's actually a really interesting old socket here. It's a 3/4 IM240 19 millimeter. And you can see right there, it's starting to get a little bit of a hairline crack after many, many, many years of use. Pittsburgh, not the same story. You can see the broach depth goes a lot deeper than the majority of the Mac and Snap-on sockets. Mac and Snap-on say that this is a strength issue, but I like the deeper broaches sometimes. Definitely gives me a little bit more option when looking at fasteners. I wanted to point out I don't use lightweight impacts either. Those are my pair of Nitro Cat 1250Ks. They have something like 1,200 foot-pounds of breakaway torque. They're not really playing games. This thing stands up to them just fine. I should also point out that this is Harbor Freight's lower end of these impact sockets. It's chrome vanadium versus the chrome moly that they have. And like I said, it's about 6 years of use on this impact. Every single day. I work at Honda. Don't think I could use anything more than a 19 millimeter, except for possibly a 17 millimeter. One last thing. We talk about steels and their strengths, and I like to tell people how soft of a steel Pittsburgh sockets are. And everybody's like, well, that's a bad thing, right? Not necessarily. In an impact socket, you want a little bit of softness. So the story behind this is me and a buddy were pressing U-joints out of his drive shaft. I left for a second to do something. I came back, and he was standing with his broken drive shaft in his hand. He said he didn't know what happened. Lied to me, but the socket doesn't lie. He used this socket in the press. He caught the ear of the drive shaft and snapped it off. So, you can see it didn't crack. It's not having any issues. I don't think this socket has ever been bolted to an impact. I just use some of them in the press all the time. Never have an issue. Very interesting. So, thanks for your time tonight. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. Sorry, I couldn't get into this as much as I wanted to. If YouTube decides to change their opinion on me, maybe I'll be able to upload that other video someday. Thanks for your time. Have a nice night.